Alright, this discussion on plasma phase physics. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon for all you global periscope viewers throughout the earth, this beautiful world of ours. I want to welcome you to a discussion on plasma phase physics. It is a beautiful book that has been written by the Arctic Falcon, which is me. I want to talk to you about the convergences of electromagnetism, which is the integrity and the state and well-being of magnetism, the origins of its state of existence. I want to talk about the outer states of dimensions. Where do they exist? What purpose do they serve? And I also want to talk about the Earth's integrity, the integrity of the Earth's force field. What exactly does it look like? What's it made out of? And what exists along the planes of each strand on each field that keeps it, gives it an integral integrity. Well, I have a cup of tea. I want to wish everyone a good morning. Have a morning tea. Invite everyone for a morning tea. Put the pot on. There we are. Let us start by talking about, or asking the question as to what are the convergences of electromagnetism? What happens when electromagnetism converges? Well, like kind electromagnetic fluxes, or opposite kinds of or types of electromagnetic fluxes meet at a specific state of existence. What happens? What occurs? And in the book Plasma Phase Physics, you'll find in chapter 19 and the witness of modest approval, or the witness of modest reproof, that the electromagnetic flux begins in actual outer dimensions, and that the integrity of each magnetism of the flux is translated and given specific, predestined destinies. And they say that energy cannot be created or destroyed, and the electromagnetic forces thereof in the plasma conduits of each flux has a purposeful integrity. Now the question is what it is that exists. What is it that is existing outside these conduits in dimensions? And where are these dimensions? If there are dimensions, if you're a believer of dimensions. I know a lot of us are science fiction folks, and we are people who are avid readers of science fiction books. We watch science fiction films. The latest one, Beyond Star Trek, that's coming. I was once, what does the integrity of a flux look like? Well, I'm going to sketch you one. I'm going to sketch a single integral line of a flux. And the actual electromagnetic linear line is a type of curvature. The line follows laws of physics that are linear and non-linear in law. And in this particular these two particular states of existence, there are two laws. One is linear and one is curvature. It hasn't been discussed, or hasn't been, encompassed, or hasn't been founded as a language by NASA or by universities thereof. but this is based upon in-depth research. Outside, in a helixical form, there's a particular particle that rides around an electromagnetic flux that looks just like this. Here, the electromagnetic line from the force field or the electromagnetic field of the Earth is following the linear law of physics and the curvature law of physics at a certain point. Now here, this particular particle rides along the flux from beginning to end, predetermining the integrity of the electromagnetic gradient of this flux. Good morning, England. Northwest coasts of England. Good morning, South Wales of Australia. And here's my spot of tea. Having with my homemade double dipped chocolate fudge peanut almond pecan cake. It wasn't until 2013 of December that NASA published some of its findings about the behaviors of magnetic fluxes. And the outer satellite convergence for the manifestation of states of folding space was written 20 years ago by me, the author, the Arctic Falcon, in the non-fiction book Plasma Phase Physics, published December 2013. And here I will demonstrate a photo supporting that very thesis and postulation that you may find in this book. This is the very manifestation of an atom, the creation of states of space and matter. This is the very language that exists in the electromagnetic dimensions outside the electromagnetic fields, and gravitational languages and galactic masses throughout time and space. And upon these particular foldings, there are specific laws, mandates, and ordinances and precepts that are, congregating, congealing with predetermined factors to create the ultimate particle or manifestation of matter. And here, in this particular if you could see it, the actual TPO is the converging point. And if you look at the image on the right, the actual particle is being formed, but the outer forces forming the star, the very outer forces, begin to first converge upon a specific point in time and space. And as the particle is formed, it begins to what? It begins to expel. It begins to create a convex, from a convex to a concave structure, leaving the convex circular pattern of the actual particular particle. But the circular pattern of the particular particle was created by the nonlinear and linear laws that were pre-translated and predetermined by the outer states of the magnetic gravitational fluxes in the dimensions that are yet unknown and being sought out to be discovered by NASA scientists. And here, in NASA television and NASA TV, we could see that the language that they're using here in NASA TV, they call it the sheets of currents. The blue sheet and the red sheet are aligned magnetic fluxes, and the arrows pointing down, depressing upon them, are actual pressure weights or forces from outer dimensions that they yet need language to express and explain. And again, as you see the magnetic fluxes receding, you'll see that NASA's language and the European Space Agency language is synonymous to what's written already in the book here. But I go into further postulation and creating non-existent language to actually support the postulation, the dissertation, and the theory thereof. And there you have it. The actual existence of a language that exists that NASA still has yet to discover, written by the Arctic Falcon. So that's what is meant about magnetic convergences. That's the convergences of electromagnetism. But the explanation of the outer states of dimensions hasn't yet been discovered, or hasn't yet been discussed, because they haven't created a perspective or a new language for it. So in reality, currently, today, there doesn't exist a science that prerequisites or leads in any curriculum whatsoever a basis to formulate theories that can better substantiate the actual existence of outer state dimensions. You hear it in science fictions, the ideas and thoughts, but there are no true linguistic evidences. But if you read the book Plasma Phase Physics, you will find that the corroboration and collaboration of outer space and dimensions do very well indeed exist. And it is proven in the book how the outer states and dimensions exist. And the reason why I bring this up in discussion and in scopes for my viewers who are serious about understanding the purpose of science and why is it necessary to lead science in the right direction and not permit science to lead humanity in a direction in which it predetermines or it deems necessary. Well, from a social perspective, we can understand, we can understand, the social economic upheaval of those who are protesting the minimum wage currently. And you ask, well, what does science have anything to do, or applied science have anything to do with that? Well, the language of science has predetermined and has set protocol to exceed the language of labor. And that labor can be best defined by technological advances. In other words, if you can make a profit without the expense, then it is the due right of corporation or an existing franchise or entity to seek out its right for profit solutions. And you ask yourself, well, how do these protocols, how do these languages, how do these languages lead in politics, so that laws and mandates and precepts and ordinances are made, so that and how is it when they are made that they affect, governing entities like police departments, first responders, NOAA, NASA, scientists, and all of the agencies there below, mind you, they're below the underwriters of the earth. And you ask yourself, well, Falcon, you as a, using a pseudonym Arctic Falcon, you wrote the book Plasma Faith Physics. What is it that you know that the rest of the world does not know? Well, that is the question that you must answer for yourself when you read the book. I've been doing my due diligence in requesting audience with the proper authorities, and if not audience, at least a lended ear. This book was written for the people of the earth, way before the idea of global citizens was put into play, or the language for globalism was put into play. Remember, global citizen movement has nothing to do with the human rights, civil rights of human integrity. It has to do with corporate powers and the corporate pursuits of profits, and lieu with the movements and collaborations with the United Nations. And the United Nations in lieu with our icons and celebrities that we so follow, adore, and worship. Now you ask, well, why is it that a celebrity can write a book in a day, and in the following day it'll be a bestseller in New York Times? And then you have a book like Plasma Faith Physics. It's undergoing, viewing, and it's being used as a great tool behind the scenes and behind the powers of the earth, and very few people know about it. Well, that's because I wasn't called or commissioned for fame or glory. I was called and commissioned to do a great work behind the scenes, and to challenge the authorities of the earth to also question their own mission objective protocols. In other words, question their own very motives. And if any of you have heard of Paris COP21, or the G8, or the G20, or the Paris Convention, or the Copenhagen treaties, or the Paris Cooperative Treaty, if any of you are familiar with this, these are the languages, these are the events that are ongoing on a daily basis, on a global level, that people on a daily basis have no time to understand, or no time to to investigate. Very few people know what's going on behind the scenes. But I tell you this very truly, and I kid you not, these particular wheelings and dealings, to put it simply, behind the scenes, have a direct impact on the working class, the middle class, and the poor people of the earth. Now, we ask, well, again, what does science have anything to do with the social, political, social, psychosocial, economics, integrity of the people and the masses of the earth? Well, if you look at the cover of the book, the very back cover here, you see here, it's an open door. These are dimensions. And right here, affixed between these two doors, are languages. Okay, and at this door, there's a gatekeeper, a sentinel, a watchman. And everything in the universe that congeals or collaborates to form language for a purpose that serves more than the earth, the life on the earth, and the integrity of the earth has to be questioned. So when you go to any of these conventions and these meetings and you see only businesses lined up to provide solutions that only provide, answers that require people like you and me to pay taxes so that they can become successful, so that they can charge us monies for their services, so that the earth can benefit and that the climate can benefit, it's the greatest form of deceit. It's a global deceit, movement of deceit. And this global linguistic, or this global language, is it's predetermined and led by global scientists, by world scientists. And it's world scientists that are the brain, the think tanks of our global economic referendums and our sequesters and our judiciary bodies. And that these particular forces and empowerments and powers of the earth are affected by these particular languages. And when we engage these languages, we have to be assured and rest assured that the order in which these languages exist must serve the people's best interests, and the first and foremost best interest that best serves the people is the health of the people. First thing is health. The second thing is provisions, natural world provisions. Now, just earlier today, Ben Carson on Facebook posted saying that the people who are protesting for minimum wage, for $15 minimum wage, should be careful and wary what they're asking for. Because Wendy's, along with other corporations and franchises on a world scale, is replacing workers with smart technology, service robots. Now I answered that, and I rebutted him, and I sort of rebuked him as a brother in the Lord and God, because he's a Christian, and I sort of challenged the order in which he made his statement. And it's not so much that the people should be wary as to what they have rights to, because God provided the earth to them and the provisions of the earth for them. And they have a right to pursue, provisions, natural provisions. But in saying that the people should be warned that they shouldn't be asking for what they are truly, are worthy of, is to me a bit deceitful and untrue. And it's wrongful, very wrongful by nature. And if you don't question this integrity, it's simply because you don't understand its origin, by which it was birthed or born from. So you cannot question the very integrity of a statement that a leader would make if you do not know its origins. Here was my statement that I made here. And I'll read it to you. It says minimum wage increase may serve a disadvantage. This is a statement made by Ben Carson. Minimum wage increase may serve a disadvantage as smart technologies may replace workers, by Ben Carson. My response was, and still is, this argument purports a fleeting truth, hidden and untold, that obscures the reality, revealing corruption in areas required to maintain the importance of keeping the balance between advancing technologies in concert with human social development by means of using said smart tech languages to enhance the human condition rather than replace the human need for accessing pursuits of God-given natural life-sustaining provisions. To make claim that education elevates the standard of living while creating opportunity for accessing and pursuits fair and just opportunities that yield higher paying jobs is deceitful and untrue. I'll read that again. To make a claim that education elevates the standard of living while creating opportunity for accessing and pursuits fair and just opportunities that yield higher paying jobs is deceitful and untrue. While completing master degrees and accruing tuition debts, industries in the interim are and were outsourced, and thousands of jobs upon thousands were lost to competition abroad elsewhere. This abandonment had a direct effect on U.S. national economic securities. This in itself is a greater evil. And that was my response to that particular statement that he made against those people who protest for fair living wages. Now, you might ask, well, how do we get from applied science, applied physics, dealing with the convergences of magnetic fields and fluxes with the integrities? It is simply this, that the order of matter, creation, and time, and the very language and philosophical origins from which they are existing must remain in the integral, intrinsic forms. At the very foundation and origins that define the order of creation, time, and matter are upheavaled, misconstrued, maligned, we the people will remain deceived, misled, and blind, and fall to our own destruction. Read the book, Plasma Faith Physics. I thank you for joining me worldwide. Again, stay tuned. I'll be upgrading on my next television broadcast on how plasma faith physics and how the significance of science and the language of faith must adhere to the purposeful destinies of the eternal codes of creation. In the name of God, God bless.